morning. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us to the end. Honorable Knowledge Seeker, today I am your host for the morning. My name is Badhar. I am from Bangladesh. Dear Knowledge Seeker, I am proud to be associated with IGP. IGP Social Certified Educational Students. In last year, we already served 35 million plus knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 450 plus professional and 2,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professional (IGP) is a training faculty for skill development, which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professional qualifications. The Institute of Global Professional is an education institute that provides social work, global education, and protocol. We serve student community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one skill just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate professional generation all over the world. We distribute our services locally, nationally, and internationally to students, job seeker, job holder, and also for learners to respective campus location and distance learning platform. We are an occupational and dependable institute. IGP is one of the famous online institutes from all over the world. Our mission is education is not a business product, it's a part of our human right. Based on our mission, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinar, seminar courses, awards, competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, they also offer more than 100 premium services for free like create own portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and world knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can update all day. Kids learning game, website, free course, combat sites, and many more. We will prepare you to learn to meet their expectation and dream and become highly successful. We implement several training programs, webinar, and offline online courses for youth and learner by professional trainer, speaker, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by global professionals to develop all kinds of youth and to promote the education of their abilities and personality. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love and light and mission. So we try to understand the needs of the generation and will serve them with good research and practice methods. We must have a genuine concern for the learner we represent. Diversity, growth, and innovation are required to lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IGP member committed to offering effective best quality service and continuous improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill level and before we move to the next, let me remind you to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind you to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Moving to the next with your continuous support. We already completed 1,443 business subscriptions. Moving to the next with your continuous support. We already completed 1,443 business. Dear IGP speaker, participant, and well-wisher, at this moment is a very important message for all of you. To change and design our website. www.pdigp.com. On this website, we have surprise for everyone. Hope you will be benefited. We launched our new website, where you can find all your previous activities together with lots of new features. But one strong point is that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. So create your account for once with proof of information. Do that with proof of information. You will enjoy all features. Mismatched data, you cannot do anything else. From now on, you have to participate in live quiz competition on our website. We replace Slido, you have to join directly on our website. Now you can check all our previous webinars with verified certificate. Now it's easier and time oriented because the session will after the session we will not provide you any code for certification. You have to take part in one exam. After that, if you pass, you will receive your certificate, otherwise not. But you can take part in an exam unlimited till you pass. If you are an IGP speaker, you can download all your previous certificate. If you are a post of IGP, you can download your certificate of JIP. If you are an online quiz competition winner, you can download your certificate of participation. If you are selected for a lifetime membership, you can download your certificate of lifetime membership easily. Besides this, if you participate in any award function which organize combined support with IGP, you can download that also. You can instantly prepare and download 18 types of instant certificate from our website within a minute. Certificate of Global Professional Membership, Certificate of Global Influencer during the pandemic, Certificate of Active Knowledge Seeker, Certificate of Social Activities during the pandemic, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeker Campaign, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeker Campaign 2021, Certificate of Achievement IGP Knowledge Seeker Campaign 2022, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 1, Authentic Assessment in Teaching Learning, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 2, Teaching English as a Foreign Language and Assessment, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 3, Digital Classroom Engagement, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 4, The New Trend in Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 5, Upskill Organizational Leadership and Managerialism, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 3, Trend and Innovation in Mathematics Education, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 7, Research and Comprehension Approach, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 8, Art in Teaching a Special Program in the Arts, Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 9, 21st Century Tool in Teaching Mathematics, Certificate of IGP Corporate Ambassador, Certificate of IGP Campus, which you can prepare and download within a minute. From now on, you have to participate in 1000 plus international level quiz with verified certificate. Teaching tips for teachers, health tips for parents, health tips for teachers. Gamification tools for teachers. You can join IGP alumni. You can check out our 50 plus premium services website for free and many more. Dear IGP well-wisher, we promised previously, but late of technical issue. We are late sending you on time. This is a great opportunity to collect your previous credentials. Solve all issues from our website. Now you can enroll, reset password, everything. You can check your dashboard for all website details. It's a cordial request to you. Check our button and pages on our website. Surely I can say you will be benefited. Thank you, but note that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. At present, we are going to start our program number 1444, which name is Cardiological Phenomena Associated with Sport, and today our speaker's name is Dr. Kishore Mukhopadhyay. He is from India. Before I hand over the speech to our speaker, sir, I will share a very little bit about him. Associate Professor in Physical Education, Union Christian Training College, Baharampur, Murshidabad, West Bengal. Now, a very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Hello, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are audible. Sir, this stage is you. You can start your presentation now.
Okay. Can I make the screen bigger one?
Yes, sir. You can start your presentation now. You are audible, and we can also see the presentation.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Respected faculty members of Institute of Global Professional and learned friends. Today, my topic of discussion is cardiological phenomena associated with sport. Now, I have divided my deliberation in several heads. Today, my agenda is what is training and adaptation, resting, submaximal and maximal state, sports cardiology, morphological consideration of heart, functional consideration of heart. Exercise physiology is the study of how the body responds and adapts to physical stress. Sports physiology is the application of exercise physiological principles to guide training and enhance sports performance. Exercise and sports physiology overlap significantly and therefore are generally considered together. Exercise is an essential physical stress placed upon the body, produce both acute and chronic effects. Acute exercise effects are suddenly and immediate, and chronic effects are long-term. Sports physiology is the study of how exercise alters the function and structure of the body. A sports physiologist seeks to understand the physiological demands of a sporting performance, which informs about the characteristics of an athlete. So what I am going to say that whatever activity we are going to do or whatever activity we are doing, it puts stress upon the human body. So exercise you can consider as a stressor. In the normal resting level, our homeostasis is maintained. When external stress comes on our body from internal or externally, it upsets the consistency of our internal environment. Upsets the consistency of our internal environment rapidly and make it a homeokinetic process. And as a result of that, when homeostasis is disturbed in a repeated manner, then some sort of adaptation takes place within our body. And it depends upon the training and recovery process, the cycle of training and recovery. So whatever adaptations are there in human body, heart is one of them, and these adaptation is cardiological adaptation following training. So adaptation training load is the context of athletic training has been described as the input variable that is manipulated to elicit a desired training response. Training load can be considered as being either external and or internal, dependent if we are referring to measurable aspect occurring internally and externally to the athlete. The adaptation of exercise training are defined by the changes in the structure and function which occurs after repeated exposure to bouts of exercise or training sessions. Exercise-induced adaptation can also be described as a phenotypic plasticity or the ability of the cell to change its morphology and function in response to a changing environment. Considering that exercise is a physiological stress adaptation prepares the body cope the better with the bout of exercise. Now, we can study our body in 6 different ways. First one, when we are thinking for exercise training or sports, resting state, that is when you are in a normal resting condition, then submaximal state and the maximal state. And how we are going to measure this. This is a major issues. So, for measuring this exercise state, whether it is a submaximal, light, moderate, or maximal state, you can measure it in 2 ways. First one is calculating the VO2 max of an individual in that particular state, and second one, taking the advantage of the heart rate. So here I am showing the equation of Tanaka et al. First, what you have to do, you have to calculate the heart rate maximum. The formula for calculating heart rate maximum is 208 minus 0.728. Then you have to prepare the target heart rate. How we can get the target heart rate? You have, from this, you have to deduct the resting heart rate from the heart rate. Whatever heart rate is there, that is heart rate reserve. And target heart rate is equal to heart rate reserve plus resting heart rate. So, classification of intensity, we think training heart rate or will be when the training heart rate will be less than 30%, it will be very light. When it will be between 30 to 49%, light, moderate will be the 50 to 75%, heavy 75 to 85%, and maximum step at about 95 to 100%. So this is the formula by which we are able to calculate the training heart rate, and it is measured in beats per minute. First, find out the maximum heart rate. The formula for calculating the maximum heart rate is 208 minus 0.78. And these maximum, if a person has a 21 years old person, the maximum heart rate may be 8 minus 0.7 into 21. So maximum heart rate by calculating it, we can get the maximum heart rate of that 21-year boy or girl is 193.3. Rounded up 193 beats per minute. So this is the maximum. Now, finding out the heart rate reserve. Heart rate reserve means maximum heart rate divided by the deduction of resting heart rate. That means if the person has a resting heart rate of 78 beats per minute, then his heart rate reserve may be 193 beats per minute minus 78 beats per minute. Then what you have to do, heart rate reserve is equal to subtracting resting heart rate from maximum heart rate, then determining the intensity range each to achieve. That means if you think the range of the intensity, the lower value will be the 65 lower limit. In case of 55, if you want to perform the intensity with the 55%, that means 55 into 193 minus 78. That means 63 beats per minute. So the lower limit of that person will be 63 beats per minute plus 78 beats per minute because it is the resting heart rate. So lower limit will be the 181 beats per minute, and it will be a range. So 55 to 70 in that way. In case of 70%, the intensity you will get the heart rate around 159 beats per minute. So you have to apply that individual in the exercise session when his heart rate will be between 181 beats per minute to 159 beats per minute. That means he will be working in the 55 to 70% intensity zone. The sports cardiology. So how we are able to calculate the resting, submaximum factor that I have mentioned clearly. Now, so what is sports cardiology? The heart and vascular system undergo many physiological changes in response to demands of exercise characteristics of the athletic heart. And it is important to distinguish those physiological changes from pathology. Sports cardiology is an advancing field that encompasses the care of athletes and active individuals with known and previously undiagnosed cardiovascular condition. It incorporates many aspects of cardiology such as cardiac imaging, electrophysiology, structural heart disease, and exercise physiology. This is the typical longitudinal section of the heart. First, on the left side, I have shown the structural aspect of the heart, and the right side, I have shown the functional aspect of the heart. Structure and function of human. So there are 4 chambers: right atrium, upper 2 chambers. Right side of the upper chamber is known as right atrium. Left side of the upper chamber known as left atrium. Then lower portion, 4 chambers. Lower chamber of the right side is termed as right ventricle, and left side lower chamber is termed known as left ventricle. And in between the ventricle, there is the muscular layer is there, that is interventricular septum. Pulmonary arteries are there, and pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins are coming from the lungs to the heart, and pulmonary artery from right ventricle to the lungs. So whatever blood we are receiving from our upper side part of the body and the lower part of the body to superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, it fills the blood in the right artery, right atrium. Then it puts pressure, and as the pressure gradient of the right atrium is more, the valve is present in between right atrium and right ventricle that is termed as tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve opens and the blood flows from right atrium to the right ventricle. And when the blood flows in the right ventricle, then the pressure gradient of the right ventricle will be high, and this semilunar valve opens and the blood enters from right ventricle to the lungs through this aorta. And after purification, this blood comes back to the left atrium, and when the blood is filled with the left oxygenated blood, for pure blood, pressure gradient of the left atrium is high, and the same process, blood is coming from left atrium to the left ventricle. When the blood is filled with the left ventricle, the bicuspid valve present between the left ventricle and the left auricle is closed, and blood enters to the aorta for circulation to the aorta. So this is the general consideration of circulation of the heart. So, training and heart, I have divided the cardiac morphological changes and cardiac functional changes. Under cardiac morphological changes, left ventricular posterior wall thickness was there. Interventricular septum, which I have already mentioned, this is the muscular layer which is separated the left ventricular blood and the from the blood, that is termed as interventricular septum thickness. Then left ventricular muscle mass, then left ventricular end diastolic diameter, left ventricular end systolic diameter, left ventricular end diastolic volume, left ventricular end systolic volume, ejection fraction. And in this way, in the cardiac morphological aspect, we have taken all the parameters separately, and all the data was taken, and all the calculations were done based on the echocardiographic. So, interventricular septum thickness and left ventricular posterior wall thickness. What is this? The left ventricular posterior wall thickness may be measured directly from the echograms of the left ventricular posterior wall, and it was recorded in millimeter. Most of the research findings indicate that the training increases the left ventricular posterior wall and interventricular septum thickness, although it is dependent upon the duration and nature of the training. This lower portion of the slide is not visible. I don't know why this is so. So this is the graphical representation. Interventricular septum before training, left one, and after training. So interventricular septum is much more higher after training, and left ventricular posterior wall also higher than that of training, and it was significant. So you can say that training has an effect on left ventricular wall also, the interventricular septum and left ventricular posterior wall septum thickness following training. Then left ventricular end diastolic diameter and left ventricular end systolic diameter. What is this? When left ventricular relaxes, the left ventricular function is, or the cardiac function is dependent upon divided into two phases, that is the contractile phase and the relaxation. The contractile phase is known as systolic phase, and the relaxation phase is known as diastolic phase. At the end of the diastole, what is the diameter of the left ventricle is known as left ventricular end diastolic diameter. And at the end of the systole, at the end of the contractile phase, the diameter of the left ventricle is known as left ventricular end systolic diameter. Optimal images of left ventricular left heart chambers can be determined to measuring left ventricular end diastolic diameter and left ventricular end systolic diameter. The echogram is going here in the bottom of the slide. So depending upon the intensity and After loading of the prolonged period of time, left ventricular end diastolic diameter increases and left ventricular end systolic diameter decreases, resulting from left ventricular higher performance. So, what is the result? The left ventricular end diastolic diameter increases. That means at the end of the diastole, the diameter of the left ventricle increases, and at the end of the systole, the diameter of the left ventricle is increased. That means more powerful contraction will be there. So this is one of the important characteristics of athletic heart following training. Now, left ventricular muscle mass. Left ventricular muscle mass is generally calculated as the difference between the epicardium delimited volume and the left ventricular chamber volume multiplied by an estimated myocardial density. The normal values of left ventricular mass index to body surface area were found to be 70 plus minus 9 gram per meter square in men and 61 plus minus 8 gram per meter square for women. Significant age and gender dependent, but no racial dependence was observed for left ventricular muscle mass index. Calculation three-dimensional echocardiography is an accurate method for measuring the left ventricular muscle mass. This is a Tricolge method we are using for calculating the left ventricular muscle mass. What is the formula of that? Left ventricular end diastolic diameter plus left ventricular end systolic interventricular septum plus left ventricular posterior thickness whole cube minus left ventricular end diastolic diameter whole cube into 1.04. So this is the formula by which we are able to measure the left ventricular muscle mass, and it is the muscle mass which plays a major role for more powerful contraction during systole and more relaxed phase in the diastole after training. Relative change of 8 weeks of training on left ventricular muscle, you can see the sprint interval training 6.8% increase in the left ventricular muscle mass, aerobic interval training 8% increase, and continuous aerobic training 2.5% increase after training. This is a indicator of measuring the cardiac performance also. So aerobic training, interval training elicit a major change of the increment of the left ventricular muscle mass because the chamber size of the left ventricle is up as a result of intense aerobic training. Left ventricular end diastolic diameter and left ventricular end systolic volume. We have measured the left ventricular end diastolic diameter earlier, and we have shown how to calculate the left ventricular end diastolic diameter through echocardiogram. Now it is the time to measure the left ventricular end diastolic volume and left ventricular end systolic volume. This is actually measure indicator of the functional characteristics of the left ventricle. At the end of the systole and diastole, the volume of the left ventricular chamber can be determined through a more two-dimensional echocardiography. Left ventricular end systolic volume 25.5 ml in men and 24.4 ml in women. In general. So, the left ventricular end diastolic volume and left ventricular end systolic volume is represented here, trained and untrained individual. This is a comparison. This is the percentage change in this percentage change of this left ventricular end diastolic volume, which is shown here. You can easily find that for trained, this left ventricular end diastolic volume is much more higher than that of left ventricular end diastolic volume of untrained individual. In the same way, left ventricular end systolic volume for trained individual is lesser than that of left ventricular end systolic volume of untrained individual. The graphical representation is shown over here, but it is not clearly visible. I don't know why this is so. The lower bottom part of this slide is not visible here. Then atrial diameter. Elastic artery. Conduit artery dimension can be assessed by ultrasound Doppler technique with good accuracy in human. An elastic artery, conducting artery or conduit artery is an artery with many collagen and elastin fiber in the tunica media, which gives it the ability to stretch in response to each pulse. So the stretch ability of the atrial wall is dependent upon this artery also, quality of the artery and the elasticity of the artery also. In accordance with the findings of some cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies provided evidence that a period of aerobic training of 6 to 12 weeks is sufficient to increase the diameter of the femoral artery, that is musculary artery. The lower bottom part is I am unable to see. This is the three parts of there in artery and three parts are there in vein: tunica interna, tunica media, and tunica externa. Tunica internal, the inner part, media is the muscular part, and external in the same and outer part is the external. In the same way, the case of vein also there are three parts, and this elasticity is found in the collagen fiber present in the artery. And one more important thing is that is the difference between artery and vein, that valve is present in case of vein. So, what is the function of valve? Valve works as a, you can say, restrict the flow of the blood. It is makes the blood to flow, makes any fluid to flow in unidirectional. It can come back to the reverse direction. It is the flow in one direction. This is the main difference between artery and valve. And one more thing is that artery carries the oxygenated blood or pure blood, and valve the vein carries the deoxygenated blood. This is the arterial wall, and this is the capillary and the vein. Capillary density. Following an increased program of an extended period of time can lead to improved capillary function, increased capillary density at your muscle site, and the growth of new capillaries were needed. While the development of new capillaries indicate the exercise does increase the number of capillaries, such increases are marginal and may not affect all people. Though exercise has the potential to increase the number of capillaries, the major effect of exercise on capillaries involved improving those that one already have. So this is the capillary density represented here in this graphically. The training effect. The last one, middle one, is the 6-month exercise effect, and that one is and the first one, that is the baseline effect. So three different bars are showing over here. So these are all about the cardiac morphological aspect. Whatever we have seen in the cardiac morphological aspect, that cardiac morphology, we have taken some sort of parameters. These parameters is left ventricular end diastolic diameter, left ventricular end systolic diameter, then left ventricular end diastolic volume, and ventricular end systolic volume. All these things we have: interventricular septum, left ventricular postural wall thickness, left ventricular muscle. These are the parameters we have taken into consideration, and all the studies has been concentrated on the left ventricle only, because it is the left ventricle which pumps the blood from the heart throughout the body, especially to the working muscle, so that the working muscle can get enough amount of blood, and especially oxygenated blood, to carry out their functions. So it is the most important part of the heart. So that's why the study is conducted on considering only the left ventricle only. Then the cardiac functional changes. What are the functional changes? First one is the resting heart rate, then submaximal heart rate, then maximum heart rate, then ejection fraction. We have taken these parameters. Then fractional shortening, stroke volume, cardiac output, venous return, blood pressure, total peripheral resistance, blood volume, etc. Last part is not showing over here. So, heart rate. Decrease resting heart rate. That means that from increased parasympathetic activity and decreased sympathetic activity, neurohormonal phenomena is associated with heart rate. So, heart rate can be studied in three stages. First one is the resting stage, then the submaximal stage, and the last one is the maximal stage. So, heart rate is the number of systole and diastole of the heart in 1 minute. So, number of contraction will be there in 1 minute. That is the amount of the heart rate. When the heart rate is, we are measuring the heart rate in the resting condition, that is the submaximal heart rate. When we are resting heart rate, when we are measuring the heart rate in submaximal exercise, then it is termed as submaximal heart rate, and when it is measured by exhaustive maximum level of exercise, then it is termed as the maximum heart rate. And how you are calculating this heart rate? It is a very easy process, and how you are calculating whether it is the exercise is submaximal or maximal or light or moderate, whatever it may be. with the help of this percentage heart rate, training heart rate. And depending upon that, we can able to create the different heart rate zones for sports training. So decreasing heart rate is depend upon the sympathetic activity, increased sympathetic activity and decreased parasympathetic activity. And decrease submaximal heart rate, decrease maximum heart rate of the elite athlete. If your heart rate is too fast, the period of ventricular filling is reduced and your stroke volume might be compromised. The heart expends less energy to contractile less often, but more forcibly than it would be contracting more often. So decrease in heart rate recovery also. The trained individual ability of the heart of the trained individual has the capacity to come back to the normal position within a quick span of time than that of untrained individual. So recovery rate of the training individual heart rate, training heart is more. Then changes in the heart rate improve the heart rate recovery. Trained individual will return to the resting heart rate faster than the untrained individual. This graphical representation is showing over here. Blue one represents the trained heart, and the red one indicates the untrained in the heart of an individual. First one indicates the resting stage, middle portion indicates the maximum exercise stage, and the last one is the recovery stage. So from this graphical representation, you can easily see that the heart of a trained individual functions more economically than that of untrained individual. Actually, heart rate depend upon the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous activity and stress hormone also, and they are more responsible to make the sensitize the SN node, which is a very sensitive portion of the heart. Then SN node is sensitized, and that impulse is carried out throughout the cardiac muscle, and as a result of that, total heart will be contract or relax. When the diastolic phase is there in the auricular section of the heart, that time the systole is going to be there in the ventricular section. They are just doing the opposite way. They are performing the opposite way. This is the pre-training and post-training effect of training on heart rate response to graded exercise shown over here. Bottom line is the post-training state, and the upper line indicating the pre-training state. So from this graph, it is easily seen that the pre-training stage, post-training stage heart is functioning more efficiently. That means this heart has the capacity to function for a long duration of time than that of the pre-training condition. Then ejection fraction and fractional certainty is I am very sorry to say that the bottom portion of the slide is not visible. That's why I am unable to read in the bottom line. What is ejection fraction? The ejection fraction is an indicator of how efficient the ventricle is at emptying itself. It is the percentage of end ventricular volume that is ejected from the ventricle. The formula of ejection fraction is equal to stroke volume but divided by end diastolic volume. If we want to turn it into a percentage, we can simply multiply by 100. A normal ejection fraction is more than 55%. This means that 55% of the total blood in the left ventricle is pumped out with each heartbeat. So ejection fraction is the amount of blood which the left ventricle can eject it. The percentage amount of blood which the left ventricle can eject in a single systole. So, if there is 100% blood and you in a normal healthy individual can able to eject 55% of the blood in the left ventricle. So, this is the general phenomenon. As a result of intense strain, this percentage may change. That means it is the capacity of the heart increase. The heart is more able to eject near about 70% of the blood from the left ventricle after strain. So, this is a good quality, and that's why the stroke volume also increases. Now, ejection fraction, how we are able to calculate it? Ejection fraction is equal to left ventricular end diastolic diameter minus left ventricular end systolic diameter into 100. And there is one more thing, that is the fractional shortening. Fractional shortening is calculated by measuring the percentage change of the left ventricular diameter during systole. It is measured anatomically long axis view using M mode. The end systolic and end diastolic left ventricular chambers are measured. So actually, what is the meaning of the left ventricular fractional shortening? That means it is what are the changes of the percentage of the left ventricular muscle in a systole. systolic state. That means it is the contractile, it is related to the contractile element of the left ventricle. How powerful the left ventricle can contract depends upon this. Fractional certificate indicates that. This is the how ejection fraction and fraction sorting is shown over here. 4 different categories, but I am unable to see the most. First one is the endurance performer, and in case of endurance performer, this ejection fraction is high, near about 68.8 percentage. For strength type, it is moderate, 66%. For combination, this is also 66%, and for control, this is near about 67%. So ejection fraction means the amount of blood that left ventricle is able to eject. And when the more amount of blood is ejected from the left ventricle, more oxygen is supplied to the working muscle, and the working muscle is able to function efficiently. So this is the good indicator. Then fractional shortening. The fractional shortening is shown over here. In case of endurance type performer, the fractional shortening will be 34%. Then in case of strength type performer, this fractional shortening is 5.7. Then combination 34 and control 34. So actually what we can learn from it, that for endurance type performers, more amount of blood is ejected from the left ventricle. And for the strength type performer, the contractile property of the left ventricle is increased as a result of strength type training. This figure is showing that. Then stroke volume. The definition of stroke volume is the volume of the blood pumped out of the left ventricle of the heart during each systole cardiac contraction. The average stroke volume of 70 kg weight male is 70 ml, approximately 2 to 2.5 ml per kg at rest, up to 1700 ml, 3 to 4 ml per kg of or higher at maximum. So this is the stroke volume, means the amount of blood which the left ventricle are able to eject in a single systole. The stroke volume is measured by subtracting the left ventricular end systolic volume from the left ventricular end diastole. Whatever the volume is changes at the end of the diastole and at the end of the systole, whatever the volume is changes, that is the indicator of the stroke stroke volume of a heart. So stroke volume was measured in millimeters. Stroke volume is a variable and depends on the amount of shortening that the myocardial fiber can attain when working against arterial pressure. It is determined by the interplay of 4 factors why the stroke volume is increased as a result of training. Ventricular distending or filling pressure, that is preload. Whatever blood we are able to send depend upon whatever blood we are getting, and this is termed as venous return. Whatever blood is coming throughout the body through superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, place a larger amount of load on the heart, and that is termed as preload. Then contractility of the myocardium, the tension that the ventricular myocardium must develop during the contractile and early ejection, that is early afterload. At the end of the you can say contraction phase, the load which is placed on the heart is termed as afterload. So preload and afterload, these 2 phenomena is very much important. The sequence of arterial and venous depolarization, then Starling's law of heart, the ability of the heart to change its force of contraction, and therefore stroke volume in response to change in venous return is called Frank-Starling mechanism or Starling's law of heart. Regulation of stroke volume, regulation by 3 variables: end diastolic volume, volume of the blood in the ventricle at the end of the diastole, sometimes called preload, which I have already discussed. Then stroke volume increase with increased end diastolic volume, total peripheral resistance, frictional resistance in the arteries, inversely related to the stroke volume, called afterload. Then contractility, strength of the ventricular contraction, stroke volume increases with contractility. Ejection fraction, percentage of the end diastolic volume that is ejected per cardiac cycle. The ejection of the formula of ejection fraction is also shown over here. Normal ejection fraction is about 50 to 65. It is a range, which I have already mentioned earlier, 55. It is a range that is 55 to 65, in between that. Then cardiovascular drift. What is cardiovascular drift? This is an important aspect. The reduced stroke volume and increased heart rate during prolonged one. Cardiac output is a result of heart rate into stroke volume. In resting level, when heart rate comes down, that is termed as bradycardia, the stroke volume is increased. And when we are performing any kind of physical activity, the stroke volume and heart rate increase simultaneously. And as a result of that, cardiac output increases because more demand of blood is there in the level of working muscle fibers. So submaximal, when performing submaximal exercise for more than 15 minutes, particularly in heat, produce progressive water loss through the sweating and a fluid shift from the plasma to the tissue. A raise in core temperature also causes redistribution of blood to the periphery of the blood cooling. At the same time, the progressive decrease in the plasma volume decreases the central venous cardiac filling pressure that reduces stroke volume. A reduced stroke volume initiates a compensatory heart rate increase while we are performing in a submaximal work. This is termed as cardiovascular drift. The slight change of stroke volume when we are performing in a submaximal to maximal work, in that time slight decrease of stroke volume and simultaneously slight increase in heart rate to compensate that is termed as cardiovascular drift. The term cardiovascular drift describes the gradual time-dependent downward drift in several cardiovascular responses, most notably stroke volume with concomitant heart rate increase during prolonged steady state exercise. Under these circumstances, a person usually must exercise at a lower intensity than if cardiovascular did not occur. Then cardiac output, which I have discussed a few minutes ago, that is cardiac output is the total volume of blood pumped by the left ventricle of the heart per minute. It is the product of heart rate, the number of beats per minute, and stroke volume, the volume of blood pumped per beat. So cardiac output is equal to heart rate into stroke volume, and it is measured in liter per minute. Systematic oxygen demand and enhanced cardiac output at rest is largely unaffected by exercise training, and the bradycardia is therefore likely secondary to the training induced increase in stroke volume. The autonomic mechanism underlying the decrease in the heart rate at rest is a result of an increase in the vagal tone and a decline in the intrinsic heart rate, while a reduction in the sympathetic activity has minimal impact. This is the stroke volume. Pre-training stage, blue one indicates the pre-training stage stroke volume, and red one indicated the post-training stage. And the cardiac output at rest near about 5 liter per minute for untrained individual is able to perform maximum 22 to 25, in between 22 to 25 liters per minute, and for the trained individual is able to perform with 30 liters per minute of cardiac output. So the trained individual is able to perform more efficiently than that of untrained individual when you're considering this cardiac output as a measure of indicator. So exercise cardiac output, left one indicate the maximal work and cardiac output. How cardiac output is increases with the increase of the workload, and the maximum workload and the stroke volume, as cardiac output is a result of stroke volume and heart rate. The second figure graph is showing that the changes of stroke volume, and after some time it is maintained a steady state, and then it is the higher increase of the heart rate in relation to the rate of exercise is shown in this figure. Blood flow from the heart increases is in direct proportional to the exercise intensity. Is direct proportional to the exercise intensity. Increases higher intensity mainly due to the increase in the heart rate. Untrained heart maximum 22 liters per minute, and trained heart can able to perform with 35 liters per minute of cardiac output. So cardiac output is equal to it is a combination effect of heart rate and stroke volume. High heart Heart rate is depend upon the parasympathetic sympathetic nerve and the sympathetic nerve, reducing cardiac output. Influence of parasympathetic nerve reduces cardiac output and stimulates the heart output. The sympathetic nerve stimulates the cardiac output. Stroke volume. Cardiac rate means heart rate and stroke volume. Achha, cardiac rate, heart rate is increased due to the parasympathetic nerve and sympathetic nerve. This nerve are playing a major role reducing the cardiac output by indicating by the red one, and the blue one increase the stimulating the cardiac output or heart rate. And con- uh, con- uh, contraction of strength will also increase due to the sympathetic influence. Then the stroke volume, why stroke volume is increased? Because it is dependent on the end diastolic meter, diastolic volume, which is based on the Frank-Starling principles. The stroke volume is increases, and sympathetic influence also. So heart rate is dependent on sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous activity, and the stroke volume is dependent on the contractile strength, sympathetic, which is based on the sympathetic activity, and mean arterial pressure. These two things are very important, and with the help of these two things, we can able to describe the why cardiac output is increased during exercise. So heart rate is increased, stroke volume is increased, and this is the neural phenomena is associated with that increment, and as a result of that, the total cardiac output is increased at the time of exercise. The factors affecting heart rate and the factors affecting stroke volume. Autonomic innervation, that is depend on the nervous system, hormones, fitness level, and age, and heart rate increases, heart rate may change, and the factors affecting stroke volume, heart size of the heart, and the fitness level, gender, contractility of cardiac muscle, duration of contraction, preload, afterload. The changes will occur for in case of stroke volume of an individual. The mechanism of regulation by venous return, force of contraction of a muscle fiber is proportional to its initial length. It is known as Starling's law of Starling's law of muscle. Whatever length is there, if the length is increases, the contraction will be increases. And why this length is increases? When more blood is filled in the left ventricle or in the ventricle, the more muscle will be stretched and the length of the muscle fiber will increase, and as a result of that, the contraction of the muscle fiber also increases, and this is known as Starling's law of heart. Now, role of Frank-Starling mechanism. Frank-Starling law of heart is shown over here. State that within physiological limits, the heart pumps all the blood that returns to it by the way of veins. Heart is able to pump that amount of blood which he received from the body. Increases the venous return, increases the muscle stretch to a greater extent, venous muscle contract with greater force, the increase the cardiac output. So this is the mechanism of Frank-Starling. Then by nervous system, autonomic nervous system takes a major role in regulating cardiac output. Whenever sympathetic nerves activate increases, that is during emotions, exercise, etc., it will stimulate both SA node as a result of ventricular myocardium, SA node as well as ventricular myocardium. This will increase both heart rate as well as force of contraction of the muscle or stroke volume. This will in turn increases the cardiac output. The parasympathetic activity increases as during sleep it will decrease the heart rate. This will in turn decrease the cardiac output also. So sympathetic inhibition and parasympathetic influence is the result of bradycardia. And in case of this, when we are performing exercise, this sympathetic influence is increases and parasympathetic inhibition is decreases. As a result of that, heart rate is increased a lot. This is the neural mechanism of the heart. Then hormonal regulation of cardiac output. Whenever adrenaline level is in the blood increases, it will stimulate SA node and the ventricular myocardium. These will increase both heart rate and stroke volume. Adrenaline hormone, which is also known as a stress hormone, has the capacity to increase the heart rate and the stroke volume of an individual. This will in turn increases the cardiac output. Physiological variables of cardiac output. Age, cardiac output is related to age also. Gender, cardiac output is more in male than females. Altitude, cardiac output increases at high altitude places because the oxygen level is high in that altitude, and our heart has to pump a lot. Then pregnancy, cardiac output increases during pregnancy. Exercise, cardiac output increases during exercise. Emotions, cardiac output increases during the state of emotion. Then limitation for cardiac output, there are definite limits to the amount of blood that the heart can pump, which is expressed quantitatively in the form of cardiac output curves. Normal, the Plato levels of the normal cardiac output curve is about 30 liter per minute. The right one is shown over here. The lowermost curve are for hypoactive, and the uppermost curve for hyperactive. When we are performing, this is hyperactivity is there. It is the green one indicated the normal one, red one indicated the hypoactive activity counterpart, and blue one is the hyper effective counterpart. Then venous return. End diastolic volume is controlled by factors that affects venous return. End diastolic volume. At the end of the diastole, when heart is stretched a lot. Total blood volume, the venous return is dependent upon the total blood volume. Venous pressure, driving force for the blood return. Veins have high compliance, stretch more at a given pressure than arteries. Veins have the thinner walls. Veins are capacitance vessels. 2/3 of the total blood volume is in vein. They hold more blood than arteries but maintain lower pressure. Then the factors in venous return: pressure difference between arteries and veins, about 10 mm of Hg. Pressure difference in the venous system: highest pressure in venules versus lowest pressure in vena cava into the right atrium. Then sympathetic nerve activity to stimulate smooth muscle contract and lower compliance. Pressure difference between abdominal and thoracic cavity due to the respiration and blood volume also. The blood pressure, the pressure of the blood in the circulatory system. The blood pressure is represented two parameters: systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. A normal average blood pressure in human being is about 122 by 80 millimeter of Hg, or 120 millimeter of mercury systolic pressure and 100 millimeter of mercury diastolic blood pressure. Factors affected blood pressure. Blood pressure is composed of two parts of systole and diastole. The systolic pressure is dependent on the cardiac output, and diastolic pressure is dependent on the total peripheral resistance. Mean arterial pressure means the average arterial pressure during a single cardiac cycle. Mean arterial pressure is dependent on cardiac output, total peripheral resistance, and blood volume. The factors contributing blood pressure, cardiac output, peripheral resistance, it is dependent upon this velocity, viscosity, extravascular length of the blood vessels, elasticity, etc., etc. The heart rate and stroke volume is the main indicator and main dependent factor for cardiac output, and central nervous system and hormone plays a major role for controlling the heart rate, and stroke volume is dependent upon the end diastolic volume, which is dependent upon the venous return, and it is further dependent on kidney and some hormones. So in this way, cardiac output is controlled, and total peripheral resistance is responsible for nervous system, hormones, viscosity, blood vessel length, blood vessels diameter, local factors, and respiratory pump, skeletal muscle. Respiratory pump and skeletal muscle pump. So these all factors are related to as a combination factor for total peripheral resistance, total blood pressure of an individual. Blood pressure response during rhythmic aerobic exercise and heavy resistive exercise of small and large muscles is shown over here. In case of rest, this is lower one. Aerobic exercise, this is systolic blood pressure and diastolic is increased a lot. Then to arm curl and to leg press exercise, to arm curl leg press exercise, this is also increased a lot. systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. This is the duration of activity. Depending on the duration and nature of activity, this pressure gradient is changes of an individual. The blood right on indication graph indicate that as we progress in the treadmill exercise, how our blood pressure is changes. Diastolic blood pressure is shown in the yellow one, and red one indicate the systolic. Systolic blood pressure is rapidly increases as we progress, and as the time we progress more intense exercise towards a more intense exercise. This is the systolic and diastolic. This is the pre-training training phase state and the post-training state. After training, the diastolic pressure reduced a lot, and systolic pressure is reduced than that of pre-training counterpart. So this is the indicator, and the systolic pressure is increased, diastolic pressure is decreased, and the mean pressure is also maintained to some extent steady state, but it is in higher value also from the basal level. Total peripheral resistance. Total peripheral resistance is defined as the total amount of resistance of the blood flow in all over the vessels in the peripheral extremities. Total peripheral resistance is calculated by using a specific equation. The equation is TPR is going to change in the pressure divided by cardiac output. Change in the pressure is the difference in the mean arterial pressure and venous pressure. Mean arterial pressure is equal to diastolic blood pressure plus 1/3 of the total difference between the systolic and diastolic phase. So this is the equation is shown over here. Total peripheral resistance, how this total peripheral resistance changes due to the progression of the exercise is shown in this graph. The decrease of total peripheral resistance is the result of decrease in the resistance in the skeletal muscle vascular bed, leading to increase in the blood flow. The increase in the blood flow to the cardiac and skeletal muscle produced by exercise is called exercise hypermania. This is the not in the normal stage, muscle, skin, liver, kidney, heart, brain, they are receiving the blood in the left one is indicating that this is the maximal exercise phase, and the maximal exercise athlete is not for this is for non-athlete and this is for athlete, because non-athlete has a capacity of maximum cardiac output near about 20 liters per minute, and the athlete had the capacity, well-trained athlete has the capacity of the cardiac output reach as good as 40 liters per minute. So this is the diagram represent how the blood flow is increasing in the working muscle fiber at the time of exercise. Then blood volume. Total volume is the amount of blood that is circulated inside the circulatory system and stored in the certain organs like spleen. It represents the total blood in the body. Normal value 80 ml per kg, and that is 5 to 6 liters for 70 kg body weight. The volume of plasma will be increased up to 20% occur with the few training session. These are to enhance circulatory and thermoregulatory dynamics and facilitate oxygen transportation of an individual during exercise. Cardiovascular exercise boosts the release of antidiuretic hormone aldosterone, two hormones that are caused by kidneys to retain or absorb water. Increased water retention within your kidney increases the blood volume plasma level and produce a greater blood volume pressure. Generally, plasma volume increases within 2 to 3 weeks of endurance training. Blood protein known as albumin increases within your blood plasma within 1 hour of your first bout of exercise. Blood protein. Greater level of plasma protein cause water retention within your blood plasma, which result in elevated blood volume. So blood volume as a result of training is also increased. Increase the total number of red blood cells within the body. A typical athlete has a greater amount of red blood cells than an individual who does not exercise regularly. Additional red blood cell enhances the transportation of oxygen to the working muscle during exercise and increase your blood volume. This is vasodilatation due to the at the time of exercise. You can study in 3 different ways. That is, first one is the vasodilation. The second one is the mitochondrial bioenergetics, and the third one is the anti-inflammatory theory. And with this anti-inflammatory theory, the hypertrophy may be takes place within the muscle. And then cardiopulmonary oxygen delivery is dependent upon the vasodilatation. Then bioenergetic is responsible for mitochondrial activity. All these things are the cardiovascular improvement due to the effect of chronic effect of exercise. Chronic effect of exercise. And this Oh, it is not seen. The physical activity cardiovascular effects. What are the what we are thinking for heart as an important factor for elevating the performance of an athlete. So high physical activity is able to increase the quality of the heart, which is termed as athletic heart. In case of athletic heart, it is that is the increase the volume and chamber of the heart, and weight of the heart is termed as athletic heart as a result of training. That is, you can say, cardiac hypertrophy. And this cardiac hypertrophy occurs depending upon the nature of training. If you are performing a strength type activity performance, then in that cases the thickness of the left ventricular postural, interventricular thickness, left ventricular muscle mass increases. And in case of endurance training, the chamber of the left ventricle is increased a lot. So depending upon the nature of activity, these left ventricular hypertrophy will be of different types. And one mixed combination type, if you are performing combination type of effect training, then you are able to get the combination type of effect within your heart. So cardiovascular effects are there that you can divide into three different heads at the level of heart, at the level of blood vessels and blood. Bioenergetics, mitochondrial bioenergy, fatty acid oxidation increases glucose utilization, decreases a bit. Electrical adaptation, ion channel expression increases. Pathological remodeling decreases. Left ventricular oral compliance increases. Contraction of relaxation velocity increases. Cardiac output increases. And blood vessels, atherosclerosis, plaque formation decreases. Aortic valve calcification decreases. Shear stress increases. Neointimal formation decreases. Oxygen perfusion decreases. Resting BP decreases in case of blood vessels. Blood, plasma lipid protein, high density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is a good cholesterol, increases. Then low density, very low density, and triglyceride decreased a lot. Then insulin sensitivity increases. Insulin independent glucose uptake capacity improved. Circulating EPCs increases, erythropoietin increases, hematocrit increases, oxygen carrying capacity increases. All these things are increased, and this is a quality of a characteristics of a good heart. So now I want to conclude with one important factors I want to discuss over here. That is why cardiac muscle is fatigue free. We know when we are performing any kind of activity for a prolonged period of time or with high intensity, in that cases, lactic acid accumulates within the muscle cell, and as a result of that, we are in a fatigue stage. And rest is the only remedy for that. But why, after birth, our heart is circulating the blood throughout the body, and it is maintain this rhythm, contraction and relaxation throughout our lifespan? Then why our cardiac muscle is not fatigued, or why it is fatigue free at the time of exercise also? There are several reasons behind that. Normal muscle like the skeletal muscle get fatigued. Strenuous activity like exercise, sports, etc., due to the formation of lactic acid as a result of anaerobic glycolysis. But cardiac muscle do not form lactic acid due to the presence of rich capillary network which provides enough oxygen to the muscle. Anaerobic processes never occur in cardiac muscle. Hence, lactic acid is never formed, enabling heart muscle to perform their function without fatigue. Cardiac muscle is a high resistance to fatigue due to the presence of large number of mitochondria, myoglobin, and a good blood supply, allowing the cardiac muscle to get enough amount of oxygen at the time of work. This is the two different phenomena. And one phenomena is that if we see the cardiac cycle, we can found that in the cardiac cycle, two phases are there. That is the systolic phase and the diastolic phase. And the duration of the systolic phase of the contractile phase is lesser than that of the diastolic phase. If a cardiac output is the duration of cardiac cycle is 0.8 second, then it can be divided into two head, that is systolic phase and diastolic phase. In case of the auricular systolic phase, it will be around 0.1 second, and in case of auricular diastolic phase, it will be around 0.8 second, 0.7 second in resting state. In ventricular systole, it will be 0.3 second. In diastole, 0.5 second. It is a general phenomenon in the resting state. That means the contractile phase in the cardiac cycle is lesser than that of relaxation phase, and they are not overlapped due to the time of intense exercise. That is also a reason that the heart muscle get enough rest than that of contractile phase, and it is as a result of that no scope of lactic acid to form. So this is the main reason why cardiac muscle is fatigue free. So this is in short all about my discussion. This is this is my references, and I'm very extremely sorry that the bottom portion of this slide is not clearly visible. This is a big problem for me today. So thank you very much for patience hearing. Thanks a lot. If there is any question, you can ask. Hello.
Thank you so much, sir, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seekers surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seeker. Once again, thank you so much, dear sir, for your presentation. Now, question answer
Thanks a
session,
lot, madam.
which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinar. Honorable sir, please stay with us. After a short video, we will back in our session part 2, which is the question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition.
হ্যাঁ, আমি আধ ঘন্টা বাদে যাবো। ওকে।
Welcome back to our participant. Welcome back, sir. Dear RGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Sir, I think after a wonderful presentation, our participant can understand the topic very clearly. That's why no questions from our participants. So once again, thank you so much, sir, for your presentation.
Thanks a lot, madam.
Welcome, sir. We have
Thank you very
learned
much.
a lot from you with new topic. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable sir, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new day. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Honorable sir, before we move to the next, dear RGP knowledge seeker, it's time for the most academic part of this webinar, which is a webinar certification process, which is a regular webinar activity. RGP knowledge seeker, it's time for our webinar certification process, the most effective and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we listed our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Certification process. Visit www.eduigp.com. Please make sure your presence on our website. Find a running session and get enrolled. After watching completing part 1, click mark as completed. Move to the next, which is the learning test, which is passing mark 80%. If pass, back to the course again to download your certificate. If fail, to retake the course. Download your certificate in PDF or JPG. For your attention, I am going to share the procedure again. Visit www.eduigp.com. Please make sure your presence on our website. Sign up or sign in. Find the running session and get enrolled. After watching completing part 1, click mark as completed. Move to the next, which is the learning test, quiz, passing mark 80%. If passed, back to the course again to download your certificate. If failed, to retake the quiz. Download your certificate in PDF or JPG. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. We change a few process for live quiz competition. Note that after live, no one can participate. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Visit www.eduigp.com and sign up or sign in. Without this, you cannot join to our live quiz competition anymore. Browse the live quiz button or given link. Find the session name and join with your logged website or user account. Click join and wait for a few minutes for others to join. Enjoy an online quiz, live quiz competition. After the quiz, you will issue for the top 10 as previously, which can find on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professionals. With 21 people, we are going to start our quiz session right now. Our first question is one of the most devastating phenomena associated with composite cones are option 1 Layered sediments, option 2. Pyroclastic flows. Option 2 is the right answer, and 33% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Kaifer is holding the first position. Our next question is electrochemistry involves chemical phenomena associated with option 1 chain separation, option 2 iron dissolution. Option 1 is the right answer, and 62% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Rosalinda is holding the first position. Our next question is on-off phenomena in associate with option 1 Lamadopa, option 2 Carbidopa. Option 1 is the right answer, and 35% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Alex is holding the first position. Our next question is radiation phenomena associated with waves include option 1 heat waves, option 2 volcanic activity. Option 2 is the right answer, and 85% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Alex is holding the first position. Our next question is Keutoria is associated with which phenomena? Option 1 loss of telluride iron to the urine, option 2 abdominal pains. Option 2 is the right answer, and 6% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Alex is holding the first position. Our next question is Homo netherl is associated with which phenomena? Option 1 mustard tools, cave barrel, and language, option 2 cave barrel fire, cave paintings. Option 1 is the right answer, and 58% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Alex is holding the first position. Our next question is physical phenomena associated with a push or a pull. Option 1 friction, option 2 force. Option 2 is the right answer. 74% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Leah is holding the first position. Our next question is phenomena associated with group of team working are option 1 conflict, passing blame, option 2 conflict with in group social laughing, group collaboration. Option 2 is the right answer, and 100% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Leah is holding the first position. Our next question is Herostratus is associated with what natural phenomena? Option 1 waterfall, option 2 volcanoes. Option 2 is the right answer, and 38% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Alex is holding the first position. Our last and final question is vesicular immunological phenomena associated with cervical endocarditis. Option 1, Janovalism. Option 2, ocellular nodules. Option 2 is the right answer, and 58% people are right here. So, congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that, we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that, we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that, we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. At the end of our session, we can say properly feed your skill, never stop learning, cause life never stops teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live a happy life, try to a goal, not a pupil of me. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit the end like button, I again want to thank all IGP knowledge seekers for your active participation as always. See you again in the next session. Thank you.